Protesters stormed the Benghazi headquarters of Libya's ruling National Transitional Council. They are demanding the sacking of Gaddafi-era officials.
Protesters stormed the Benghazi headquarters at Libya's ruling National Transitional Council, NTC, on Saturday, while its chairman was in the building. People in Benghazi, birthplace of the revolt which forced out former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, have been protesting for weeks to demand the sacking of Gaddafi-era officials. They want more transparency about how the NTC are spending Libyan assets. Hundreds of young men, many wounded from the war, rallied outside NTC's headquarters. When NTC chairman Abdul Jalil came out in an attempt to address the crowd, some protesters hurled empty plastic bottles at him, prompting security forces to fire tear gas. Protesters threw stones and metal bars at the window, breaking its windows before storming the headquarters. The attack is a serious blow to the self-appointed but internationally recognized NTC, and underscores growing discontent over the way it is running the country. Many of those who fought in the 9-month civil war that ended with the capture and killing of Gaddafi in October are unhappy with cash compensations promised by the government, saying that they do not cover their basic needs.
There's also criticism from analysts that the Council's main goal is to secure a Western oil interest rather than to establish democracy.
Their mission in Libya, for example, is not to improve life in the country. Libya already had the highest standard of living under Gaddafi in all of North Africa. What Libya does have is the 9th largest global oil reserve and the top oil reserve in Africa, and that is what the National Transitional Council are being supported for, in order that they should promote Western oil companies, Western financial interests in Libya, and the people will just have to bear it out. The people have already been bombed, killed, a veritable genocide has taken place, as we've seen in Iraq. So in a way, the same pattern is repeated over and over again, where there's a double standard. They say that they are promoting democracy, but what they are basically doing is promoting the financial and geopolitical interests of the global power elite embedded inside the United States, Britain, the European Union, and Israel.
A spokesman for British civilians for peace in Libya, Sukan Chindan, says the National Transitional Council is failing to unite the country.
The Gaddafi regime could control the whole of Libya, could find peace amongst all the tribes. The new regime cannot even control something in one town or one area. I mean, they've turned Libya into a warren of the hunting of black skins. They're selling off their oil and natural resources and sovereignty to NATO. And now the thieves, that is the rebels, they're all falling out with each other. So really, this is the achievement of freedom and democracy by NATO. It's all become very clear. People of Syria and the people of Lebanon and the people of the global south have to see that what's happening in Libya is coming to them if they're not able to defend themselves and stop this rolling Western aggression against other countries of the global south.
Older foreign troops are now leaving the bulk of the fight in the hands of these local militias. They're known as Arbaki, and here in northern Kunduz province, the presence of US-backed local militia groups is greatly felt. In these areas, Afghan forces have limited reach. Therefore, these local militia groups are rapidly growing in numbers and they're taking matters in their hands. They're being armed and paid by NATO to fight against the Taliban militants. We found the militias very loyal to NATO. In this village, they have been able to repel some of the Taliban attacks.
We are being paid by our foreign friends. They pay us from $150 to $300 per month.
But when we met with local people, they started loudly complaining about the performance of local militias. It has taken us by surprise. They blamed the militias for looting, kidnapping, murder, and rape. To them, the presence of these groups was intolerable. They were calling for an immediate disarmament of all militias.
These groups are operating illegally. Their operations have to be stopped and their arms should be seized.
Some others, however, even did not dare speak out against militias on camera. They feared of being threatened. Militia groups here were created by General David Petraeus, former top US military man in Afghanistan, for what he said to keep the Taliban at bay. It did not happen. Instead, they have turned their weapons, as what people here in Kunduz say, on local villagers. Faiz Khurshid, Press TV, Kunduz.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com and on YouTube, ddarko2012. I recommend checking out some of the headlines and links and YouTube's video description. Everything I cover will be in there, so if you're just for the first time seeing one of these videos, that's the big thing about GGN is I put all the links of the articles that I cover up there. Alright, so you just saw this video right here. The first one, Libyan protesters stormed government headquarters, and wasn't really all that accurate because they're usually a little bit better, this NTD television news from Asia. But what they were saying was that it was all the grassroots protesters. It's like no, these guys were terrorists. These guys are airing their grievances. They're not like yeah, you can call them opposing Gaddafi, but what were they? They were terrorists that were paid, al-Qaeda linked, and and you saw they were flying the green flag in this one video. And there is a civil war going on right now, and it says right here, pro-Gaddafis gain control of Bani Walid. So right now there's pro-Gaddafi, Jamahiriya loyalists fighting against these terrorists who want their money for basically what they've done, overthrowing the government. And isn't this the irony of the thing? This is what I've mentioned before, guys, is that now they're arguing about not about getting old Gaddafi cabinet members out. It's not that. It's that they want to get paid for what they did as mercenaries, and they're saying, oh, now we don't have now we don't have the accoutrements that we had, whereas before they were the most modern country in all of Africa. So, it's just like, this is, you got to see through the BS there. It says here, following a deadly attack against the base in Bani Walid, loyalists of the slain Libyan dictator have reportedly gained control over his one-time bastion cities. It says here, the loyalists of Gaddafi took control of the entire city, former NTC member said on Monday, said the latest developments follow an attack by loyalists against a base, killing at least 5 anti-Gaddafi revolutionaries, or what I call terrorists, mercenaries, and injuring tens more. According to Fatmani, loyalists were carrying green flags and chanting pro-Gaddafi slogans. Now, there's a video I posted on Facebook, Global Government News Facebook group. You can go check that out. But there's a video on there about the resistance in the desert, and you'll see these guys, just a whole convoy of these trucks, totally self-sufficient with fuel and weapons and stuff like that. And I guess that's where they're hiding out in the desert right now. And you could see one of them, like there's like one little truck that has the green flag if you look closely. So check that out. Okay, next up. Libyan Islamists rally to demand sharia-based law. So this is from January 20th, 2012. They've already tried this before, but they're going at it again. Hundreds of Libyan Islamists rallied on Friday to demand that Muslim Sharia law-inspired legislation in what organizers called a response to emergence of secular political parties after the fall of Gaddafi's, it was a regime change. And we have here, so Libyan rebel commander admits his fighters have al-Qaeda links. Well, okay, so Libyan rebel commander admits he has links to al-Qaeda. Well, what is al-Qaeda? Well, top-ranking CIA operatives admit al-Qaeda is actually a complete fabrication. So there you go. And hopefully you remember this video that was all on the internet from January 12th, 2012, and it was basically the South African president. They were one of the last countries in Africa to vote against the intervention in Libya. And it says here, NATO's Libya bombings create a, quote, regional African disaster, Zuma says. So this disaster is going to require what? Libya and the NTC, 12,000 U.S. troops to Libya. And then when you go down, the really good article, by the way, those who created the chaos have a plan in the midst of the chaos. They usually are the ones who will win. Those who wrote the plan of this chaos were affiliated with the Project for a New American Century. And you go in there talking about General Wesley Clark told us the plan to invade and destroy the governments of 7 countries in 5 years. Of course, they didn't do it in 5 years, but Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. They say they believe the socio-side of Libyan society, as we previously witnessed in Iraq and Afghanistan before it, is part of a carefully crafted plan of destabilization that ultimately serves U.S. imperial interests and those of the Zionist state. So remember this, carefully crafted plan of destabilization in Iraq and Afghanistan, which now have militias going around looting, terrorizing, just like the Libyan rebels were. Iraq's leader becoming a new dictator. This is from December 13th, 2011, and this is to give you some background. Then look at this from January 23rd, 2012. Rights group says Iraq is a budding police state. Goes on to say that international rights group said that the spring uprisings, all intelligence provocateur and plan, was turning the country into a budding police state as autocratic regimes crumbled elsewhere in the region. So just like Libya, where I'm not saying Saddam Hussein was a great guy, but when he was there, at least Iraq was somewhat stable. They had all the different Shiites and the Sunnis and that, all basically coexisting like in Libya. So regime changes is really what they want. Maliki's failed dictatorship, Iraq on the brink of a civil war, so just like Libya again. And just like another country that I've been covering a lot, Pakistan. So thousands of Pakistanis from 40 different religious and political groups have held a demonstration to condemn Washington's policies and the unsanctioned U.S. drone strike on the country's tribal region. I guess it's one of the biggest anti-U.S. demonstrations to be recently held in the country. There was also 5 people that were killed in a recent drone strike. So this is where we left off in the last video. Report Russia deliver combat jets to Syria. That's right, they do have troops or warships there as well near Syria. U.S. ambassador, Yemen security forces cooperated with al-Qaeda. So the U.S. ambassador says Yemen security forces cooperated with al-Qaeda. Remember, this is the same place where the U.S. went in there and strategically drone striked and assassinated their propagandists. Who didn't actually carry out or call for attacks. He was just their propaganda guy. I'm trying to remember his name, but I can never actually pronounce it. But he's a guy with the little glasses, Al-Warki, whatever. And then they killed his son, too, who went there to help with the burial. Then they killed and assassinated and murdered his son. So Yemen security forces cooperate with al-Qaeda. So now, remember, al-Qaeda is what? Al-Qaeda is basically the CIA. So there you go. U.S. ambassador saying that Yemen security forces cooperated with the CIA. So there you go, just kind of tying it together for you. Liberia's Charles Taylor worked for the CIA, says report, says the first African head of state to be prosecuted for war crimes by international tribunal. He used to work for the CIA, the Boston Globe newspaper reported this week. Next up, Islamist insurgents kill over 178 in Nigeria's Kano. Says here, editor's note, this is from Infowars originally. Notice the Intel Center's logo right here on the upper right-hand corner of this Boko Haram video release, an indication that the CIA or Pentagon is behind this infamous terrorist group in Nigeria. Next up, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Azerbaijan develops its partnership with NATO. So this actually isn't going to happen because I found some new news from a Central Asian news source. Azerbaijan, Russia signed document on double increase in gas supplies. And right here, British aerospace company not to serve separatist airport with new airplanes. Says the Armenian media previously reported that the separatist airport will be serviced by aircraft produced by British aerospace company. So it came from an Armenian news source, which just today in France, they just passed a bill that you can't deny the genocide of the Armenians. So you can kind of see where their puppet government is siding with NATO. And then now you can see what Azerbaijan is siding with Russia, which is no surprise. But North Carolina Air Transport Company, Aero, kind of coincidental, has role in extraordinary rendition reports. And it goes in there for many years. There's links that the CIA has been accused of being a taxi service for paramilitary teams that pack up terrorism suspects in one country and fly them to another. Black sites, torture sites. The report does not accuse Aero employees of engaging directly in torture, but they say they are accountable for aiding and abetting violations of human rights. Doing a quick citation from the Third World Traveler, the Committee of 300 Conspirators Hierarchy by John Coleman. This is the ex-MI6 guy that was talking about putting into practice the theories of Edward Bernays, a chief at the Tavistock Institute, devising methods whereby agents such as Henry Kissinger would be brought into the scheme of things to secretly promote the New World Order or global government as the actual agenda of the United States. To return the nations of the world to a state of utter feudal dependency under the authority of a supranational government was always the motive for every action ever taken. Independent sovereign nation states were regarded as an obstacle to the grand design, talking about the grand chessboard. To be an independent nation state must be able to control its energy source. Nuclear-generated electricity is the key to bringing third world countries out of their backward state. So in 1971, the Iran government tried to build a nuclear electricity generating plant And the CIA mounted a covert operation that destroyed the program by overthrowing the Shah. Putin meets Kissinger on global issues in a private meeting without giving details about the talk about bilateral relations as a key of global importance, of course, to the global government. Everybody's asking the technocrats about the grand chessboard like Brzezinski. Let's have lunch with them. This is GGN. I'm Darko. Thank you.